What's up, everybody? Real quick, just a quick, I guess, disclaimer for this coming out a little bit late. Apologies if you want more details on why this video may be coming out late. Go back and watch my most recent live stream, the Christmas Hobby Hangover, I believe is what it was called. I think it's episode 11. And I get into more details about why my videos have kind of been coming out later and some changes and stuff like that. But just wanted to get that out there. I still think everything in this video that I had notes ready to record and just didn't get around to it, all that stuff is still relevant. So I hope you enjoy this video and I hope you can take something away from it. Thank you. Are people actually taking my advice and digging back into the archives and the history of wrestling cards to discover the cards of their favorite wrestlers? I know Andre the Giant is popular and one of the most collected wrestlers in the hobby, but this sale that I found really made me scratch my head. And have we finally reached that level, that tipping point of overproduction within the wrestling card hobby, even though wrestling card collectors are still clamoring for more? This is the Wrestling Card Market Watch for November 2023. What's up, wrestling fans, trading card collectors? Welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Cards. It's that time again. Each month I do one of these videos looking back at the prior months, some interesting sales, some cards that maybe don't surface as much, and just some talking points that I can build around those sales to hopefully help you, the viewers, better navigate the hobby and the world of wrestling cards. As we look back at November, I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving and enjoyed some great wrestling action and hopefully added some great pieces to your collection. If this is your first time stopping by the channel, thank you, and hopefully you'll stick around. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more new videos that come out. And if you're a card-carrying member of the KISS Army, the Wrestling with Cards viewing community, hit that like button and I thank you for your support. But enough of that, let's get on to some wrestling cards. Headline sale of the month, sealed wax is alive and well. That's right, people are still buying sealed wax. But of course they are. That's how cards are opened, right, Zhan, you idiot? Well, let's look at some of these interesting sales and talk about them. 1988 NWA Wonderama, $1,499 with $12.55 shipping. A very high price for this box, which I actually think may be warranted. I personally love this set, but I know a lot of people don't, and I think it's because of the quality of the cards and the images used. They do kind of look like Polaroid pictures turned into cards, but in my opinion, tying that with the 80s, which is what the decade that this set is from, I think it's great nostalgia and adds those memories for us wrestling fans. But to my knowledge, this is one of only two officially licensed and released NWA wrestling card sets. The other being the Power set, which came out a few years ago, is just a small set. But this NWA set has a ton of great cards. Some rookie cards, or first appearance cards, whatever you want to call them. Names such as Sting, Lex Luger, Ron Simmons, and a personal favorite of mine, beautiful Bobby Eaton. And I would say that somebody probably bought this box for one of two reasons. Either they're going Jim Mint 10 hunting, trying to pull a Sting or a Luger or one of those other high-end first appearance cards, or maybe just a card of Ric Flair that's a superstar card. Or they may have possibly bought this to hold. So maybe somebody bought this 30 years ago to hold and they're selling it now. Well, maybe this next person is going to hold it for another 30 years and see what the price does on this. 2006 Topps WWE Insider, $159.99 with $10 shipping. So what's this one? What is Topps WWE Insiders all about? Well, honestly, I don't really know. After doing some research on it, I did find out that it was, I believe, a UK exclusive release. It does contain some foil cards and some cards of some of the bigger names in wrestling history. But to my knowledge, I didn't see any autos that are in this set, any chase cards, any relics, and no big name rookie cards. So then you have to wonder, why would somebody pay this price for this sealed box if there's nothing really in there to chase? 2018 Topps WWE Women's Division Blaster, $39.99 with $6 shipping. Now this one I totally understand. This set features a ton of great chase cards, mainly some rookie cards and first appearances of top talent. Not to mention the autos and the relics, and of course, those KISS cards. And an interesting note from this one, I really believe that this one was a flip from the seller. Reason being is because I remember seeing these boxes all over the shelves at Target and Walmart in around 2020, and you can find them marked down. I even bought a few of these for like 10 bucks. So when you look at all these wax sales recently, what do you think it means? Of course, I have a few thoughts. First being the rip. No matter the product, no matter what sector of the hobby it is, people love ripping cards. That's how they come out of the box. That's how you get singles. People love the gamble. They love the dopamine hit that they get from ripping packs. And of course, as always, I'm never going to tell people how they definitely should spend their money. Maybe I could give some recommendations. I will say that ripping and that addiction of ripping can become a slippery slope if you don't have control of it. And especially with the fact that the WWE Panini license up in the air, we don't know if it's going to go with Fanatics or stay with Panini. Maybe it's some kind of half and half split. And then on the other hand, we have people that maybe aren't so happy with coalition or releases or prices of indie card sets. Or you could say the same thing about Upper Deck AEW. And since people love to rip, I think they may actually be going back into these older products, again, just to get that dopamine hit and see what they can pull. But on the flip side, I still think this kind of falls into those two categories that I had mentioned. First being that hunt for those singles and getting a Gem Mint 10 on those. And sure, this is going to probably be your best chance to get one of these cards in any, we'll just use the example of the wax that I mentioned. If you're wanting to look for a card out of there that you want a PSA or SGC, BGS, 9.5, 10, whatever it is you're looking for, this is probably going to be your best chance. That being said, it's not definite. I think there is a misconception in the hobby that if something is pack pulled, it's immediately a 10, and that's just not the case. And maybe people are wanting to get these graded and maybe go for the 10s, but maybe they're also focusing on set registry now. And you may ask, why would they go after a set of these specific things? And my response is, why do people collect sets to begin with? It's because it represents a moment in time, and maybe their fandom, maybe they had a connection, maybe they're collecting the year of a set of cards that came out that they became familiar with a certain wrestler, or the year that they really got into wrestling cards, so they want a set to kind of commemorate that. And within that, just kind of as a side tangent, I think people may also be looking into this to kind of create their own markets on some of these things. You know, those people out there that'll say, oh, pop 1, none higher. And my response to that is always, well, okay, if you pulled a random card out of a random set and it's a pop 1, none higher, and you can't sell it for that $500 price tag you're looking for, maybe because nobody wants it or nobody cares. We actually saw a lot of this during the pandemic boom, and it's changed a little bit, but I still see some sprinkled through the social media networks that I'm a part of and buying, selling groups, and of course eBay. But another reason I think, and maybe the main reason that people may be buying this wax, if it's not to rip, is for investment purposes. Now let's take time out of the equation of all of these boxes. And let's say that the seller of these items, hypothetically, paid retail price for these boxes off the shelf when they came out. And when you look at these boxes that were sold in that perspective, they're all winners. In fact, I would say if in the long term, it's actually probably rare to lose money on sealed wax. If you're looking at it from a hold, sealed, and then sell down the road, not to rip. Now, of course, those days of going to Walmart or Target or your LCS, buying that blaster, that hobby box off the shelf, immediately being able to put it on eBay and sell it for 3 times the amount of money within an hour, those days are pretty much gone. But let's say you go out and you buy a box of WWE Select or Prism or Revolution, or maybe you go after one of these indie sets that came out that there's not very many made of, or one of the first Upper Deck hobby boxes that ever was produced. If you grab that stuff and you're holding it for like 10 years plus and you can kind of contain that urge to rip, I just don't see these things being a loss. But on the flip side, again, you may not see those immediate gains and that quick flip opportunity that you could potentially get with singles. Totally awesome sale of the month, 2011 BBM Kenny Omega Kota Ibushi PSA 10, $263.29 with $5.60 shipping. To my knowledge, this is a first appearance card of Kenny Omega. If I'm wrong on that, let me know in the comments. And it's a PSA 10, so double thumbs up. So this is a cool card and all, but what really excited me about this card is that it potentially, and maybe I'm creating a story here, fell into the hands of a newer collector. Now let me lay out the scenario here. Maybe it's a newer collector, just getting into cards, big Kenny Omega fan, or Kota Ibushi for that matter, or maybe they're just a New Japan AEW fan, and they hear about these things called wrestling cards. And they hit the old eBay button on their Google machine, and voila, maybe they were at the event that this picture was taken. Really, the possible connections that a collector could have with this card are endless. And potentially one of those scenarios I just listed off could have been what happened with this sale. And my hope is, whether that's a new collector that bought this or a veteran collector that bought this, my hope is that people really are taking the time to dig back into the archives of wrestling cards and maybe even wrestling history. I think that's something I've been preaching on this channel since the day that I started putting out videos, and maybe people are finally doing it. Doing their research on the past and taking that and curating a collection that means something to them. Instead of just relying on whatever the newest product release is or whatever the latest case break on whatnot is, and relying on licenses to be fought between 2 big corporations. It's not what it's about. It's about collecting. It's about connection. And it's just my opinion, but when I got into the hobby, I didn't care about any of this other stuff, and I found it way, way more fulfilling to kind of blaze my own trail within collecting, getting the stuff that means something to me, not because I'm trying to impress somebody else on social media, or not because I'm trying to flip the latest product, per se. Surprising sale of the month, 1991 Merlin WWF Andre the Giant foil sticker, 44.99 pounds, which is approximately $57.12 USD. What? Shout out to Tweet Wrestling on Twitter, X, for bringing this one to my attention. So this is a sticker from the 1991 Merlin set, and my first thought was, this is shilled. This isn't getting paid for. Something fishy's going on here. But then I started looking at some of these other foil stickers and the sold prices of some of the ones from the other superstars. And my first thing that I noticed besides the actual sales of them is that I couldn't find another Andre at the time of recording. So again, I was like, okay, well, I'll just go try to do some comp here with other wrestlers' logo stickers, just like this Andre, and see what those sold for. And what I was finding was between current listed prices with maybe or maybe not best offer, and of course, sold prices, most of the average WWF wrestler logo stickers were going for between $10 to $20. And some of the bigger name ones or more rare ones going for higher than that, like this Andre. And I'll fully admit I'm not that educated on this set or what the chases are, what the print runs are. So if you know more about these foil stickers and what's the rarity, what's the chase, print runs, any of that, let me know in the comments below. And not only educate me, but educate everybody else watching this that can go read those comments. But let's face it, at this point, if you put Andre the Giant on a card, and we're talking even just the words, maybe not even a picture of him, people love it, it's going to sell. Questionable sale of the month, overproduction. Overproduction, how is that a sale? Well, here's what I mean. When kind of perusing through the sold listings of November, I was also seeing some sales kind of, you know, sprinkled in there from October and September. And when I was looking at some of this stuff, I had no choice but to bring this up in this video. Have we finally hit the tipping point of overproduction in wrestling cards? Are we truly living in the junk wax era 2.0? Or potentially the junk slab era that I'm sure many of you have heard people mention? I can't help but see some of these sales and wonder why they're so low. Now look, I'm not an idiot. Well, actually, some of you may argue against that and think I'm a complete moron, which, okay, cool, whatever. At least you're watching my video. But I'm not ignorant to the fact that the markets are pretty much down across the board, no matter what kind of sector of the hobby you're looking at, or just collectibles in general, even if it's not cards. On the flip side, I'm also more aware that wrestling cards seem to be a little bit more stable than pretty much everything else in the hobby. I mean, I guess you could say like Pokemon or Magic or maybe Lorcana. Some of that TCG stuff, maybe it holds a little bit more stable. But when you compare that kind of stuff, and we'll put wrestling, we'll just say all non-sports, when you kind of compare that to traditional sports and what we've seen the last couple years, everything's gone down, but all that other stuff that's not the traditional stick and ball sports seems to kind of have been just more stable in general from a price perspective. Not to mention from a collector-based perspective, I think, as well. But back to the topic, I see what some of these cards are selling for, and I ask why. And as always, we dissect a question with more questions. Of course, you have to bring up auctions versus buy it now. In my opinion, unless you're running an auction on one of those bigger platforms like a Heritage or a Golden Auctions, or one of the other major collectible auction houses, I would say you're probably going to have a significantly less ending price for your item if you're just doing it on eBay, or if you're putting it up on one of those flash auctions on whatnot, as opposed to where a lot of people could kind of put it at the buy it now price, which is what I do in my eBay store. Quick plug for that, link in the show notes. But you could set that price and then negotiate down if you need to. If you got something overpriced, you could take way less. But you're not going to get that, I guess, you know, cut in third just because you want to get rid of it quicker. Of course, I guess that depends on each person's standing on that card and whether they need to get it quick or whether they can sit on it. And I know that not everybody wants to take the time to do buy it now prices or have an eBay store. Maybe they're just working on consignment, and that's another thing. Maybe if you're just putting the thing up for auction and it's not getting a lot of eyeballs based on maybe you just don't have a big track record on whatnot or eBay, it's not going to get the eyeballs. But maybe if you use a consigner on eBay that's got a lot more followers and a lot more eyeballs, maybe that gets more. I also think there's a misconception, and I've talked about this before. There are many people that think that the auction way is the true value of what someone will pay for a card, and that is just not true. It's not the most accurate way to view things, and here's why. You may have 20 collectors for a specific card at any time, but maybe somebody didn't get the new alert that some other collectors had set up saved for that in their searches. Maybe somebody got busy. I know I've done that many times. I've been watching a card, it's got 5 minutes left in the auction, and all of a sudden something else happens, and I'm missing the auction. As opposed to setting that high price and letting people kind of get to it as time permits, and you are the one who can field the highest price, not, you know, whatever day that auction or whatever time that auction decides to end on. And again, maybe people are okay with just throwing up their cards because they just want to get rid of them. They'll take whatever they can get, and that's okay. They just want to funnel that money back into PCs because maybe they're leftover cards that came out of a box break or something that they opened themselves. They're not interested in them. They just want to get rid of them. They want more PC items. They want more boxes to rip, or they just want to pay bills. So not looking for top tier values, therefore they don't care. Again, just looking at different angles and perspectives of the way people do things within the hobby just to kind of get a well-rounded view of things. I also think we have to question the low sales of a lot of these cards. With so many new collectors coming in, you would think that the sales will be higher. And I think maybe therein lies the conundrum. People are confused. I think people get lost in the shuffle of why they got into the hobby in the first place. Is this going to be a fun thing for you to do, to collect your favorite wrestlers and try to chase super collections of them, or put together sets that mean something to you? Or are you just trying to make money off these things? Are you only looking for PSA 10s of whatever card it is you're looking for because that's what people told you was a good investment? Or are you curating your own PC, no matter what that is, to fit your needs and your wants and your likes? There's no real wrong answer to this. I just wonder, though, if all of this kind of boils down to overproduction. And of course, we could break that down into two other categories. First, from a value perspective, everything is special, nothing special. When you get to the point that you have like double-digit one-of-one releases of a talent in a single year across the products that they're released in, they can't all be selling for six figures. Everybody loves gold parallels, but when you have triple digits within a single calendar year of a release of a talent, does that become more valuable or more important? Sure, golds are out of 10 if we're looking at Panini, but when there's that many of them, are they really that rare anymore? Therefore, are people willing to pay that big money for them if there's that many out there? Certain things have just become not as special anymore, in my opinion, because there's just so much out there. And to kind of piggyback on that, wrestling cards are only produced at a fraction of what traditional sports cards are. Let that sink in for a minute. But yet we have these fickle wrestling card collectors, and they're yelling at the clouds because, oh, I can't get an auto in the case. There's not enough hits in this. Okay, so then maybe these companies hear that and they put more hits in there for the collectors, and then those people do pull those hits, and then they immediately look at the comps of what those cards are selling for, and they're still disappointed and back to yelling at the clouds. Or I guess that maybe you, the viewers on social media, they're yelling at you because they're upset about your opinion about something. My opinion is kind of a lose-lose situation. That being said, not everything about overproduction is bad. In fact, this era that we're currently in of wrestling cards, be it overproduced or underproduced, whatever your stance is on that, in my opinion, it's the best era we've ever been in within wrestling cards. Especially if you take a step back and look at all of these releases, not from a value perspective, but from an opportunity perspective. The flood of new wrestling card product has done nothing but introduce more people into the wrestling card hobby. We've got more collectors as we speak within wrestling cards, even the people that just dabble with a card or two that are mainly in sports cards, or maybe they do TCG and they just want that Kenny Omega card. More collectors now with wrestling cards, and wrestling cards being taken seriously than ever before. And despite a lot of the low sales that we've seen in the last year or two, on the flip side, we've seen some of the highest sales ever that continue to just climb within wrestling cards. And if you need proof of that, make sure to check out the WTC YouTube page and check out their 3-count show where they're always going over the top tier sales of the month. And digging into those videos, it seems like each month that they do these, the top 10 sales that they pull, those prices overall, no matter who's on the card, no matter what set it's in, or if it's vintage or modern, those prices continue to go up and up and up. So while my opinion may be different than yours, or maybe there's just a variety of different opinions in general about this overproduction of modern wrestling cards, overall, I still think it's kind of positive. What'd you think about the topics or the cards featured on today's video? Leave a comment below with your thoughts on any of my talking points, my opinions, or maybe it's just letting me know what you got recently in your PC. If today's video brought you some value, hit that subscribe button, give me a like, and tell a friend. Spread the word, first and foremost, about wrestling cards, but then once they're getting into wrestling cards, you can send them over to my channel so they can maybe hopefully get some value out of this and better navigate the hobby. Also, when you're done leaving a comment, make sure to check the links below in the show notes for all the ways you can help show your support for my channel, links to my eBay store that I mentioned, Patreon, all my social platforms, and much more. Until next time, click the videos on the screen for more great wrestling card content. Keep collecting and having fun, and I'll see you in those videos.